Paolo Veronese. Imagine a stage crowded with elegant nobles, mythic gods, exotic musicians, and an architecture so grand it seems to open onto the sky. That sense of spectacle, a painted theater where color, costume, and architecture perform together, is the signature of one of Venice's greatest Renaissance painters. Veronese's canvases are feasts, literal banquets, epic battles, mythological embraces, and intimate, jewel-like portraits. He painted monumental altarpieces and secular commissions for palaces. He could compose a tableau of 1,000 figures and yet make each one look alive. In his hands, light becomes fabric, and marble columns become part of the drama. You'll see how his theatrical imagination transformed religious stories into contemporary Venetian pageantry, how his color and brushwork rivaled Titian's warmth, and how his taste for costume and detail created paintings that still astonish. We'll examine his great works, from the wedding at Cana to the feast in the House of Levi, from mythic scenes like Mars and Venus to portraits of Venetian society, and we'll explore the curiosities, the run-in with the Inquisition, the travelers and sultans he painted into a gospel scene, and the painterly choices that made Veronese a master of spectacle. Join me as we step into his painted theaters and listen to the murmur of silk and the clink of glasses in canvases that celebrate life, color, and invention. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating more educational videos like this one. Paolo Veronese was born Paolo Cagliari in 1528 in Verona. The name Veronese simply signified where he came from, a common practice in Renaissance Italy. He trained locally, absorbing the lessons of painters like Titian and the Venetian colorists, and then made his career in Venice, where art, commerce, and theater met. Early works and devotional commissions show a young painter confident in composition and fascinated with narrative. You can spot the influence of Venetian color and the lessons of drawing in portraits like his self-portraits, where personality and costume combine to make a subtle autobiography of status and taste. In religious works such as the Mystic Marriage of St. Catherine, Veronese's figures already display the relaxed elegance and bright palette that will define his mature style. Portraiture offered him a different discipline, capturing presence, texture, and social rank. Even in portraits, you can sense the theatrical instinct, a staged pose, a lavish collar, a shimmer of jewelry. This mix of narrative ambition and studious attention to surface set him apart from many contemporaries and prepared him for the large-scale, multi-figured commissions that would make his name. To describe Veronese's style is to talk about theater, architecture, and color as equal partners. His compositions often read like a stage set. Broad steps lead the eye, columns frame the action, and doorways open to distant vistas. This is architecture as narrative device. Color is Veronese's loudspeaker. Brilliant blues and pinks, silks that glow like stained glass, and a warm Venetian light that unites the scene. His brushwork can be lavish and loose in fabrics and foliage, more precise in faces and jewels. The result is texture and movement. Look at how he places figures in deep, ordered spaces in canvases such as the wedding at Cana, the foreground feast, the orchestra of attendants, the columns and balustrades that march back into space. In the family of Darius before Alexander, he stages royal dignity and pity through gestures and luxurious textiles. The historical moment is presented with pageantry. In the feast in the House of Levi, he populates a sacred meal with a tapestry of society, musicians, jesters, pilgrims, and exotic figures, each rendered with careful attention so the whole reads as a living crowd. Veronese borrowed from theatrical costume, from commedia dell'arte, and from the spice trade that made Venice wealthy. His characters wear turbans, brocade, armor, and lace. Technically, he embraced large canvases and layered glazes to achieve luminosity. He used architectural perspective to heighten drama. Marble floors and receding colonnades draw your eye through the scene like a camera dolly. This combination of stagecraft, color, and painterly bravura is what makes his work unmistakably Venetian and unmistakably Veronese. If there is one painting that epitomizes Veronese's genius, it is the wedding at Cana. Commissioned for the refectory of a monastery and painted in 1563, it is vast, theatrical, and exuberant. The scene shows Christ's first miracle, turning water into wine, but Veronese stages it as a Venetian banquet, aristocrats in ruffs and Eastern turbans, a table groaning with food, and a band of musicians whose instruments and gestures give the scene a celebratory heartbeat. Look closely and you'll discover surprises. An Ottoman-style figure who might be mistaken for Suleiman, a cascade of painted fabrics, and a procession of servants. Veronese treats the miracle almost as a detail within a larger spectacle. The miracle occurs in the midst of human revelry. Artists and patrons loved the painting because it bridged sacred narrative and contemporary urban life. The monks who ate beneath the painting would have seen themselves inside this world. Technically, Veronese uses architecture to organize the chaos: towering columns, steps, and an elevated center stage where the most important figures stand. Musicians and dogs, dancers and noblewomen populate the canvas. Each figure is a small marvel of color and character. Many copies and fragments survive, and art historians still delight in tracing the painting's multitude of characters, costumes, and glints of light that make the work endlessly discoverable. Veronese's appetite for pageantry also led to a famous clash with religious authority. In 1573, his Last Supper for the monastery church in Venice had provoked the attention of the Inquisition. The painting brimmed with dogs, jesters, soldiers, and even a man with a beard and turban, elements the tribunal considered inappropriate in a depiction of Christ's paschal meal. Rather than argue theological points, Veronese defended artistic license. He reframed the scene as a feast and kept the painting's theatrical richness. The tribunal accepted a minor change in title, and the work survives as The Feast in the House of Levi. This episode speaks to Veronese's impulse to universalize sacred stories by placing them in contemporary life, and to the risks of blurring sacred boundaries with worldly spectacle. The feast is also a technical triumph, a riot of poses, gestures, and a complex orchestration of color and light. Look at the detailed faces and the variety of costumes in the painting's close-ups. Veronese painted a society, not just a biblical event. Veronese was equally adept at myth and intimate portraiture. In mythological works such as Mars and Venus united by love and Venus and Adonis, he combined sensuality, classical references, and Venetian display. These compositions let him stage smaller dramas: lovers' glances, the tension of an embrace, the playful presence of Cupids and putti. Apollo and Daphne shows his capacity to render motion and transformation with elegance, while the family of Darius before Alexander converts a historical narrative into a scene of courtly magnificence and human feeling. Portraits, meanwhile, reveal Veronese's sensitivity to social identity. A sitter's dress, gloves, pearls, or fur speak volumes about status. Yet Veronese often imbues portraits with warmth and personality beyond mere costume study. In portraits painted as saints, like the portrait of a lady as Saint Agnes, sacred iconography and fashionable dress combine to create images that are devotional and worldly at once. Whether painting gods or nobles, Veronese loved texture, the sheen of satin, the sparkle of jewels, the softness of fur, and used it to animate expression. As Veronese's reputation grew, so did the scale and frequency of his commissions. He ran a busy workshop, trained pupils, and collaborated with other Venetian painters on large decorative cycles for palaces and churches. Late works show a maturity of touch, freer brushwork, confident color harmonies, and an ease in handling complex compositions. Paintings like The Finding of Moses exemplify his ability to balance narrative clarity with chromatic richness, while his portraits continued to register the quiet dignity of sitters. After his death in 1588, his influence persisted in Venice and beyond. Later artists borrowed his staging, his palette, and his taste for costume. Collectors prized his canvases for the way they captured the Venetian world: cosmopolitan, theatrical, and opulent. Today, Veronese is not simply a painter of spectacle. He is recognized as a master who married drama with refined painterly technique, a storyteller who used color, architecture, and human presence to make the past feel immediate. Paolo Veronese painted in a key where color, costume, and architecture harmonize into a sustained celebration of life. His canvases invite long looking. They reward viewers who linger and discover new faces, small jokes, and subtle light effects. From the monumental wedding at Cana to intimate portraits and mythic interludes, he taught generations how to stage human story as pageant, sometimes ruffling authorities, always enthralling audiences. If you take anything away from Veronese, it is this: painting can be theater, and theater, when truly practiced, can teach us to see the world as a sequence of living tableaux. If you enjoyed this exploration, delve into a catalog or visit a museum and stand before one of his great canvases. The experience is, even now, a kind of invitation to a banquet.